And considering that's only
world, right?
Decentraland, it's not. There's no listeners from anywhere else. So, that's proving the point. I mean,
boss, how many people did you get out there for the casino launch?
So we ran the numbers with we ran the numbers. HP ran the numbers for me because he's like tracking all the users per parcel, and we had 411 unique users over. It was like a six hour period.
Wow. I see more names there that I've never seen before.
Dude, same here.
Yeah. Donald J. Trump was there. I saw him.
Wait.
The real.
The real one, yep.
The real.
That's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fantastic product.
If he's not tweeting, he's in DCL.
Super important to the world, you know?
We know he's good for the tweets, so we'll...
Yeah. If he's not tweeting, he's in DCL. That's how he rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What time zones are we all in? I'm in the morning, 8 a.m.
Midnight.
I share my OBS screen.
Midnight.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm 6 p.m. for me.
I already know what's going on, Maddie. It's because the OBS is capturing your picture and it's not letting the other one do it.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
AJ, where are you from?
I'm from England, but I've lived in Spain for pretty much half my life. So
Okay.
half and half, I guess. What about
What
you?
part of Spain?
I'm East Coast.
East Coast America?
Yeah.
Not the East Coast out there.
Yeah, 6 p.m. So you're Rio's time zone. DCL Plaza.
Yeah.
He's
It's
London.
tough to get Rio here on a Saturday night, yeah.
Yeah, he's usually boozing by this time too, so.
It's true, man.
So what's the topic of discussion today, guys?
Dennis, it's like 1 a.m. over there, huh?
Yeah.
It's like 1 a.m. where you are, right?
Yeah, it's 1 a.m. Yeah, quite late.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
Catherine as well, of course. We've been trying to get KJ on the show for a little while. Last time she fell asleep.
Sorry.
Oh, that's what happened.
I tried to recharge batteries and it really backfired.
Yeah. It's all good. I mean,
I think I've fallen asleep a couple of times as well, so don't worry.
Yeah.
It's
anyway,
normal.
I'm here now.
Yeah, exactly. Lots to talk about. I don't know where you guys want to start at. I know I want to talk about copyright stuff.
So, Frankie, you want to talk about the conversation with Swiss? How'd that go? Like, what's the summary?
Was there really a summary? We were talking shit. That's what we were doing. We were
rolling right now?
I mean, he was he was asking a lot of questions that had to do kind of with like philosophy, I guess, of what you're like, what I'm trying to get out of Decentraland and my vision on how I'm going about my business and stuff, you know? And he had questions asked about you guys, and it was super informative. That's for sure. We went deep. It was a cool conversation because we went pretty deep.
Okay, good.
On a lot of different subjects. So it was he had a lot of good questions. That's why I'm glad I had him on the show for sure. I'll probably have him again.
That's really cool to see because I've seen him go from being a complete new member within, I think, 2 weeks ago, and then now he's just fully creating all this awesome stuff, getting right involved with the community. It goes to show like you don't have to, if you're active, then we all pay attention and everyone, you're right in there with all of us. So,
yeah,
it's cool to see. So is he developing something for MetaZone, or is he deploying his own build? What's his thing?
He's got a build there. There's a club that we went to today, and then we went to a different building. There was a giant building. It seemed like some sort of more giant.
I think that was like his headquarters. I think.
Yeah, right.
More like his.
It's like DCL Ventures.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's pretty nice. It's very realistic looking. You're realistic.
Like Will would hate it because it feels like a regular life. Not into that shit.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that soon.
He's like, I got
How soon, Will? Because I know.
Well, no, I mean, just conceptually, I think the metaverse could probably accomplish a lot more if things weren't so realistic. Like, for example, like the conferences, like sitting in front of a screen and doing a slideshow. It's cool that we can do it in Decentraland, but I feel like there's a better way to do it. But of course, there's consequences, right? We got to get developers involved, and we have to figure out a way to do slides in 3D, which is not easy. And then not only that, anybody who wants to present something in the metaverse should do it as easily as creating a PowerPoint slide, right? So that's not exactly straightforward yet.
So that'd be something there was levels to. Like, okay, if you wanted to display 3D models, that's a possibility. It's just going to cost you no more bread.
Yeah, for sure. And that's how I was like thinking about it, because a lot of this is about sustainability. If we want to make this sustainable, there has to be some kind of monetary exchange to that extent. And let me turn off the music here. And if there's no monetary exchange, then you can't expect anybody to create anything. So, I mean, as far as, in real life goes, that's how it works.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's part of what Swiss and Frankie were talking about. Is Swiss has like a more like a socialist approach to as far as like building in the metaverse, meaning like, people should build things and kind of like give it out freely to whoever wants to.
And I think that he was saying, I don't think he was saying everything, but I think he thinks that there should be some version of like we have with the neighborhood, Catherine, where there's like things that you can kind of access if you're not a builder and be like, okay, I'll put this on my land,
No, that's really interesting, because not all of us are members of that neighborhood project. It'd be a good time. Whoever of you guys who are part of it can kind of like break it down for the rest of us.
Clark, you want to go in on that?
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty cool concept. One user named Scorpio kind of put together this project where he spent a lot of time kind of putting together a proposal and getting people on board. And they kind of tried to limit it to people who are very active in Decentraland and people who are kind of, trying to move the community forward, which was cool. And it also gave us a really good mix of people, I think. So for the past, 3 or 4 weeks, he's really been grinding on that. And we finally distributed the lands and started to actually purchase the lands recently. And so it's 22 parcels. Each one is owned by a different community member. And everyone's kind of got their area that they can build in. And so it's kind of interesting, because there's already been some discussions going back and forth between like, what's the best way to do this collaboratively? Are we going to try to connect the parcels? Are we going to try to, do our own thing? How are we going to maximize space, but also, take into account everybody else so it doesn't become like just a big cluster? So some of those kind of conversations are happening at a micro level, but as people are starting to put stuff on their land, it's like a really good demonstration on if you're motivated to build on one parcel for whatever reason. A lot of us, I think, who are building on land hold multiple parcels, and so you don't have that limitation. But I've been really impressed to see how cool people can get on one parcel. And so like my basic, I learned Blender and the SDK after just joining Decentraland, so I had no background, and so I found just with 3 weeks how cool it is to just be able to texture objects and bring music in and do all that stuff. And so I built like a little like gathering spot, like a medieval round table for everybody. And then I think, there's a maze, cool, which is awesome. There's like a couple games. Yeah, it's really cool what you can do.
You did that in 3 weeks? Like you learned in 3 weeks and you figured out how to do all that?
Clark's an intelligent dude, though. It's not like he's not,
That's really cool to see. I see a lot of people are starting to learn this stuff, like Blender and basic coding. I guess because now there's like a new platform that's so accessible that everybody feels like they're incentivized to kind of learn these new skills. Before it's like you have to get recruited by like a big Silicon Valley corporation in order to like contribute anything. That's what's so cool about these decentralized applications. Anybody can contribute.
Yeah, and you can learn as long as you want to. Because I've spent hours and hours, doing tutorials and stuff like that. And I talked about before, like I might watch one tutorial for 2 days, because I'm not really understanding whatever is in there, and I'll just take my time, figure it out, and then apply it to what I'm trying to do. I'm doing what's in the tutorial.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys want to speak on like some more. Now that Clark is here, you were the one who brought up like the first like legit.
He lit the fire.
Proposal.
He lit the fire. That's what happened. He wrote this 9-page. What is it? A proposal, right?
Proposal. Yeah. So I mean, and I think I don't know. I can talk about the proposal or we can, not talk about the details of it, because for me, it was kind of twofold, right? I saw the forum, I saw what the team was putting out, and, there's this concept that 22 million mana is going to be delegated per year to projects, right? Mm-hmm. And so the idea that, proposals are going to be kind of a fundamental aspect to at least how that fund is delegated. And, I think everyone kind of has their views, and I have my views on how governance beyond that will work with the DAO, but at least as to how money will be delegated from the DAO, I think it's important to really get to a level of minutia when you do these things and have the details that are necessary to actually execute, right? And so part of my frustration with the platform has always been, even with the DAO, there's such a lack of information on, the details. And, as a lawyer, I'm constantly like, I need a 500-page document that outlines every single aspect of this, so that if there's ever a dispute, I have the security that I need, that it's there, right? And I can't act until I know what the rules are. And so for me, that was kind of my thought. It's like, let's take a simple idea like user-created wearables and come up with a structure for how they could be released that's actually like A to Z, and not just like, because I think some of us saw the proposal that was out there, and I understood that it was a very early draft and, whatnot. But I think that there's going to be, blog posts that go out to the community to explain what something is. And then I think there has to be kind of the back end document that explains how things will actually work in detail, so that the people who are delegating, what's eventually going to be millions of dollars, can make decisions on an informed basis and really consider, what it is that you're proposing. And so for me, it was kind of just like, I was getting into debates with people on the forums, and I was like, you know what, this is fine. Like, it's one medium of doing this, but 5 hours will be much better spent if I sit down at the computer and write this all, in a thoughtful and structured way. And so I did it. And, in the end, if it changes completely and that's what's submitted, or if it's never submitted at all, I think it served its purpose, because people are talking now. And I've seen other proposals, come out since then on different topics that are much more structured than what we had before. So I like that.
Yeah.
I think
thought it was
important.
good just to get the conversation started, Like, obviously there was a conversation there, but the conversation really got started after that, And I think now we're at the point where now we have a serious use case for the DAO, Let's vote on this one, we gotta see what's up,
Yeah, this will be.
We gotta see. This will be a good first run for the DAO to see if it's working correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing about the proposal, and I don't know how many of you guys actually sat and went through the whole thing.
Every single one. I read every one.
My issue, and part of the reason why I wanted to write the proposal, was because I did think that this was a good use case for the DAO as to proposals. But I also thought it was a very clear example of something that shouldn't be determined by the DAO, that the DAO will be just kind of unfit conceptually to determine. Yeah. And so I proposed, and I think ultimately this is what's going to have to happen with the DAO, is that the DAO is going to have sub-methods of community involvement for certain issues, and that they may ultimately be created by the DAO and voted upon by the DAO, but then just as a matter of ease of implementation and actually garnering community involvement, I think there's going to have to be certain issues that are voted on outside of the DAO. And so I proposed, a very basic kind of like one vote for user type system for this, deciding which wearables to bring in and what the community wanted, which was, I think, pretty stark contrast to what the DAO was suggesting on, having curators and then maybe only having a handful of people who've staked, large amounts of mana decide which ones go through. So I think that I have very strong views on how the DAO will work from a governance perspective. And I'd like to see more details, like I said before, about how they propose it before I actually, make judgment. But I do think that the DAO will serve an important function as venture capital type fund as a means of delegating the money that's been allocated, if nothing else, because that makes sense. And that's been done before. And, it makes sense that certain people will control that because they've invested more.
Agreed. So I might be able to back me up on this one, but what's your elevator pitch, Clark, on what you're trying to accomplish with the wearables? Is it the fact that you're trying to limit the amount of wearables submitted into circulation? Is it you're trying to limit trolls? I mean, what's the goal with this proposal?
Well, like I said, the goal with the proposal was really just to get the conversation started, to show that the kind of the level of detail that I think is necessary to actually implement something like this. I don't have super strong, connections one way or the other on how it's done and how it's implemented. I read the proposal that was put out and I just said, this is unworkable. It's not going to achieve the result that at least the community is expecting. And so what I aimed for was a system that was much less restrictive on what was actually going to make it into the market and how that would be determined, but that still somehow maintained the scarcity of wearables so that it didn't kind of turn into the crypto voxels free-for-all.
Yes.
And I think there's a fair argument for a free-for-all, right? Where some things are put in place, copyright protection and things like that. And keeping the obscenities and stuff out of it. Mm-hmm. But I think that, that's a different proposal that someone could make. And I tried to kind of strike somewhere in the middle between what the team had proposed and what I understood the team had proposed and a complete free-for-all.
So far, I think one of the only debates that we should be having is really how we prevent nefarious wearables from showing up, or nefarious content just to begin with. Only because I think when it comes to wearables, it's all about reputation. There's been tons of debates on wearables, and like the one that I was having in the general chat in Discord was, it boiled down to, if Jay-Z came in and minted 1,000 wearables, all those would be gone in a second, and probably each one would be worth 500,000 mana. And there's 1,000 of them, right? But then Joe Blow comes in, and he mints a single wearable. Well, that may not be worth anything, right? Nobody's gonna want that because it's not. He's a nobody. And so to restrict the number of wearables, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm not understanding like what the debate here really is.
So I guess that requires more like feedback from people who are looking at it from more like an investor standpoint, because you're looking at it more as a creator accessibility, So yeah, there's two sides to this argument, whether or not people value these wearables as like actual investment tools, similar to how cryptocurrencies looked at.
See, the way I look at it is that's already gone down that route,
I think long term, Will, your analogy or example of Jay-Z getting involved, that's really good once there's like millions of users. But right now, if you increase or you put out there a supply that there is no demand for, it's just going to completely crush the market, which I'm kind of leaning towards an open market. But I think right now we should find a balance in between. Because we've seen, I don't know, I've seen in crypto voxels, I've been part of multiple different projects where they have made the decision to increase supply or let supply just figure itself out. And it's just turned into like pennies.
And that's very important.
That's just what's happened.
That's an important take, because we do have to look at all the other projects who have done this already and not make those same mistakes. And when you put it that way, it makes sense, Maddie. Go ahead, Frankie.
Sorry. My argument about that is that I have been able to get more people's attention behind the wearables thing, owning your own. And I talked about it earlier on the podcast with Swiss earlier, on the interview with Swiss, where, I come from like gaming. Like I used to play Madden and, 2K and stuff like that. And you would have these auction houses where you buy and sell these cards that you use. And those have no value, You're never going to be able to own it. Next year, they're going to put out a game. You're going to have to buy them again, but people still pay money for them. So for me, going into the wearables and understanding there was a supply number that I could see, and then it goes into my wallet and I can sell it for anything I want in life, that was something attractive to me, and is also attractive to other gamers. And I've been able to get more people's attention with that than anything else in Decentraland.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to hear KJ's and Dennis's thoughts on that, because I don't think we've heard their perspective.
Well, Dennis specifically, because you're doing the
Dennis. That's
let's talk about it.
So let's hear KJ Walker first.
Of course, yeah.
Views on wearables.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Like, what's your opinion?
Honestly, I think it should be completely open. I think anyone should be able to make anything. I know that has economic ratifications, but I think if the idea is to create a decentralized metaverse where we all have the same rights, we all have the same voting power, that's the only way to move forward. Maybe to cut supply, we could limit the amount of wearables that each user can make. For example, you can make one wearable per month or one per fortnight. So it would kind of make you focus more energy on making a really good wearable and avoid inundating the market with things that would then lower the value.
Wouldn't that be a smarter implementation, Maddie, to say that anybody can create anything that they want, but you have to already have a wearable first, and then you have to burn that wearable in order to create a new wearable, right?
Wouldn't that interesting thought?
Wouldn't that make more sense? Like from a technical and because what we don't want to do is we don't want to have to look at every single wearable submitted and then see whether, vote on, a creator who's submitting something like that. It's not really scalable, right? That's not sustainable. So
how would that work? How would that work in the sense of, say I'm a designer and I created a set of wearables, and then to create a new set of wearables, I need to destroy all that whole supply, or?
Well, that's something
previous supply.
No, that's a good point, because if you wanted to create a wearable of 100, then you would have to collect 100 wearables. I mean, that doesn't make sense either.
And then the people that bought into the wearables that you want to destroy or burn to make the new ones, what happens with them? I think right now it's kind of making a simple framework that has the balance and that can be implemented within the next 1 or 2 months, hopefully, and then kind of releasing and relaxing the rules as we get to know what's going on. Ideally, you want an open market, as KJ said. That was some really interesting points.
Another thing I had kind of come up with was having user-created wearables be a completely separate category from the ones that exist now and that would be released later by the team.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Toonpunk about that, about like making a different set of numbers. A user mythic might be, maybe user mythics don't even exist, but like, let's say a user legendary is one of 25 instead of one of 100. Because, like if everybody's making them, you know what I'm saying? Like, might as well just,
or they're just all the same rarity.
As many, Was that?
Mm-hmm. Or they could just all be the same rarity and just say like user created,
exactly. Yeah. But I'm saying like a different number that would be like not at all the same, because there's a whole different dynamic of the way they're being distributed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Dennis, you want to talk about Dapcraft and like what your thoughts on, because you've been working on this,
from the beginning.
Differently, from the beginning.
Quite a lot already.
Yeah.
So what I think is, So what I think is that it is really important to get users inside the world.
Mm-hmm.
And creating and selling wearables, as I see it, we should promote that it should be done inside. And adding extra wearables, as I see it, it should not be done adding it to the market directly.
Mm-hmm.
And as we see it, you can buy a receipt and then you can go inside the world and craft your wearable. Then at least we encourage users to get inside. And on the other hand, as I see it in Dapcraft, what we are trying to do is to create an infrastructure of buying and selling wearables inside the world.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the question, should it be the open market or closed? From the entrepreneur's point of view, it should be opened, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you just have a wearable, the community should understand that without the infrastructure inside, without the time users can spend inside, we don't need such wearables.
Agreed.
Really. Yeah.
Good point.
So you take a little bit of a different approach in the sense that I think you're closer to proof of work wearables, where you have to earn whatever you put on. As to me, in a metaverse, that makes the most sense. But I guess from my perspective, it's a little biased like anybody else's. But I would prefer to have a world where wearables are earned and then traded in the open market, right? That way you sort of limit the supply just by the work people put in to collect said wearable. And let's say you have Jay-Z wearable coming out, there's 1,000 of them, but you have to do some crazy amount of work in order to get it. I'm pretty sure those 1,000 t-shirts are going to be minted, right? Because people will do the work to get it. But they're that much more valuable because they have been minted versus someone that just comes in and just creates 1,000 wearables, right? It's a different value structure.
I think it's a different little a dynamic here though, because Decentraland being more of like a platform, like a social platform, like you're not gonna do nothing at my building. You got to listen to 45 minutes of a podcast in order to get a shirt. You know what I'm saying? So like on some level, this isn't all about doing stuff and running around and using WSAD or WASD to go do stuff. Like
no,
again, what if I want to make a create a wearable, and then like what is going to be the task to do at my radio station?
Yeah, in that case, it's more like the brand value that you add to your wearables in your case, because essentially you're minting 1,000 of such and such wearable, and whether or not there's a demand for the purchase of that wearable is all dependent on what kind of value you've contributed as far as like your own personality. Exactly what you're doing right now is perfect. You're creating a brand for yourself, the Frankie brand, the Frankie Needles brand. If you create 1,000 hats over somebody who's never done anything social, you're gonna sell out way quicker than he will.
Absolutely.
True.
And they're gonna be worth more.
But I'm saying about having to do. For instance, let's say Facebook had wearables and you had avatars. Are you really gonna go through on Facebook and play games all day to get? You're not. But you would pay a couple bucks. And
maybe
like coming from video games where like where you wear wearables, dudes just want them, man. They don't care to do nothing to get them. They just want to be seen with that stuff on, man. It's just like the human personality part of it.
And you can get them on the open market, but they have to be earned first, right? Somebody has
in order to be minted. You're saying, right?
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think a good segue into that stuff is kind of doing what the team has done in the past with you have to show up to this event to get this wearable. And now that we're all hosting our own events, it would be pretty cool if like KJ could have made like a fashion show t-shirt wearable. And if you showed up to the fashion show, you got that t-shirt. I think it's something that now that we're hosting our own events, we need to look into and have the opportunity. And it's a good segue into what you guys are talking about, which is do X, Y, and Z to receive this wearable. It's a nice transition.
I do see what you're saying. I mean, it'd be nice to have conference wearables, for the conferences, Manny. So, I could see,
And you just got to show up. There's no like grinding out and expecting people to come back for hours and hours.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. Go ahead, Clark. I'll let you go.
Sorry. No, so kind of going to Maddie's point and what Dennis was saying, I think that the freer the market is, the more of a demand there will be for wearables in world. I kind of played with the idea of having a wearables shop where I was displaying the models, in a space, and I couldn't figure out a lot of the coding, but the ability to see it was kind of a bigger deal for some of the mythics and stuff that no one's ever seen before. And even here, it's such a small community that you do see them. But once you've got, 1 million different designs, right? And you and you don't really have a good way of sorting through them because you don't know the names. You don't know. You can get online and you can scroll for 2 hours, or you can go to Dennis's store, or you can go to whoever's store and see 3D models. And I've seen your platform, and what it is it's displaying. You can kind of scroll through the models that he's featuring and see what they look like in 3D. And I think that eventually, and that's kind of why I do support a move towards a free market. Eventually, I think that there are a lot of logistics that still need to be controlled, and kind of the lawyer in me says, if you just let it go, there's going to be a pair of Bitcoin glasses tomorrow, and there go the value of Bitcoin glasses, you know? And so like without any ability to control what is and what is not minted and how it's distinguished and how people can kind of see what things look like in world and copyright law and all these other logistical challenges that there will be, I do think the ultimate goal should be a free market. And I don't actually think that it will kill the value of the wearables that are currently pre-launch. My view is kind of like, it's like art, right? You're going to have the classics are always going to be worth something. Someone is always going to want the launch shirt because it's tied to DCL. It's a historical piece. And whether it's ugly compared to the really awesome stuff that users are now able to create, it's still kind of like people pay tons of money for shirts that say Supreme on them, right? And those are ugly, but they are worth a ton of money because someone's describing some greater aspect. It's almost like an art piece. It's a statement. It is what it is. So I do think we can move towards a free market and have that be the goal without completely destroying the existing market and upsetting expectations of people want to invest. And I say that as probably someone with probably among the top 3 to 5, you know, people in terms of having numbers of wearables. And I would probably in the short run be someone who would stand to lose a lot from that. But I think in the long run, I think it makes sense to go to a free market. I just think it will take some time to get there. And I think it will, I mean, even just creating wearables that actually work in world is a significant challenge that I don't think people realize. The developers would have to do a significant amount of kind of dumb-proofing the builder or whatever they're using to create the wearables in order to make them work with the current Explorer or futures versions of the Explorer.
I want to challenge you a little bit, Clark, on the statement you made about the Bitcoin glasses. I don't understand the logic that if somebody makes a Bitcoin glasses, why the original Bitcoin glasses value will go down. What's the logic behind that?
Well, I think it depends on the utility of having the original, right? So if the idea is you want to go to an event, and like today, I went to the Rosa was having a DJ at the conference center. There were, you know, a handful of people there. And I was kind of cycling through my cool wearables that I have. And it was fun to kind of show off like these different designs that like people probably haven't seen before because they're one of 4, they're, you know, one of 5, or they're, you know, there's only a couple of them in circulation. And so it's like kind of cool to have that uniqueness. As soon as someone else is able to mint that and wear exactly the same looking design, that loses its value, right? It's like a knockoff Louis Vuitton, and the same reason why people, you know, try to control that, because if you've got every single person walking around with a Louis Vuitton purse, if 90% of them are knockoffs, the people who were originally going to buy the 10% that aren't are no longer going to buy those because they can no longer make the same sorts of statements that they were able to make with the brand. And it's just, I mean, frankly, it's illegal. I think that's another point. You know, it's a violation of copyright law. And there could be ramifications logistically for both the foundation and the platform. And just, you know, as a lawyer, a copyright lawyer, I've seen how much of a pain it can be. Just you get one person pissed off and they take legal action, and it just creates a nightmare, you know, trying to deal with everything.
Isn't that the value of the NFT though?
Mm-hmm. And the blockchain infrastructure in itself, meaning like the ledger is completely open and it's all record.
Yeah, if you have the original glasses,
so.
If you have the original glasses, I mean, and it looks the same as the guy copying you, I mean, you're going to pay the 10,000 mana for the original glasses, not the copy, right?
You may, but if the utility is that it can distinguish you in world, and that is part of, if it's not just that you're collecting something that's authentic, but you're also collecting something that can be displayed. I think art's a good example too, right? People display art in their crypto, you know, whatever. Any piece of art that's currently displayed, I can go take a picture, put it in Blender, make a model, and put that same thing on my property right now. That's a violation of copyright law. It is what it is. No one's going to enforce that right now. But what happens when you're displaying a piece of art that you paid $10,000 for? You don't want, you know, every single other person to be able to just take that, copy it, and put it on, you know, on their property. And because there is a certain amount of exclusivity and scarcity. So, I mean, you're right. To the extent that you're talking about being able to trace the origin on the back end, I think NFTs do solve something. But again, I go back to kind of the Louis Vuitton purse example, right? When you buy it on eBay, if someone sells you a fake purse, it's going to sell for like, it's going to be $50. It's going to be $30. It's going to look real, but they're not going to be able to verify the authenticity of it. So we kind of already have that in the real world, to the extent, you know, you have honest sellers and not honest sellers, but it's the same concept, right? It's not so much that people aren't going to be able to distinguish them when purchasing them. It's that they're not going to be able to distinguish them when they're being displayed in the world, which will drive down kind of the coolness and the value of having the real one.
Just like people don't care to have a fake one if it's cheap.
Yeah, if they were the same size, if they looked exactly the same, they fit on your face the same way, then they'd be completely indistinguishable from whatever that was going on, you know?
I think utility is the most key word here, because if the utility is just visual, then yeah, you're going to have copies, and the guy copying you is going to look exactly like your $50,000 Mana glasses, right? But like if you go into Decentral Games, go into their casino, and he says, hey, you know, if you, you end up making, 50,000 Mana today, you get this T-shirt, and this one will make you glow, right? My T-shirt will make you glow. I mean, that provides some utility that only happens within his casino. And so
I could want to glow just as bad as I want to have these things on my face.
No,
but what if someone else makes a wearable that glows exactly like how he wants it to glow?
Well, I guess it would be tied to my scene, though, right?
Exactly.
Only in your scene.
Yeah.
So you're the only one that recognizes it.
That's
your
right.
scene's the only one that recognizes it.
Exactly.
But I don't think people want to just wear these in specific scenes, though. Like we have meetups everywhere, right?
But I'm
so
talking
about a wearable.
No, I'm talking about the utility of it. Like, for example, you have copies of the same shirt, right? The Central Games T-shirt, right? I won 50,000 Mana at his casino. You walk into his parcel, the guy that's faking doesn't glow, but the guy that actually won the 50,000 Mana actually glows.
But that's what I mean.
That's saying, but we want to glow at the conference.
So you want to glow outside of his?
Yeah, but you can verify the authenticity by going onto his land. That's the point. Is that you can showcase that this is the authentic T-shirt versus somebody glowing at the conference, right? It's not the same authenticity, even though it has the same functionality.
But here's the thing about wearables, and I think this is what we're trying to get across to you, is that the wearables thing is a style thing in game, and it's kind of like a thing that you do to kind of show other players in game that you got some style. So it would be really like specific to your business to want to just have people get only value on your parcel from your wearable.
Well,
and almost
I guess devalue be the only value
to the user, because you'd be like, all right, cool, man. I'm not really trying to get that. I'm gonna get one of somebody else's that I can wear everywhere and does the same thing everywhere.
I think he was just saying like it would just be authenticated on that specific parcel.
I get the concept, but what I'm saying is the general, like the reason why we get wearables is to wear them around.
Yeah, and I think, just from an authenticity standpoint, I don't think you even need the use case because of what you're saying before. However, I do think what you're saying is going to drive value. There will be some wearables that are driven by their utility on certain parcels. For example,
like that.
I don't know, but like let's envision a scenario where someone takes up 20 parcels and they build a game where you battle each other, right? A big duel arena. And the wearables that they create give your character certain properties and make them stronger or bigger or whatever it is. That only works on your land. And so if you have, you're going to be able to maintain authenticity that way because you're the one coding the wearable, you're the one distributing the wearable, and it's in a closed kind of circuit. And so, the idea there then becomes, okay, you're kind of having pockets of centralization within Decentraland, and you're able to control on the micro scale and prevent some of the abuses that we were talking about that might be there in a free market on the macro scale. I'm also not a believer in like kill an idea over one potential problem. I think the idea of a free market is feasible, and you can control for copyright, and you can control for duplication, and you can control for all sorts of things like that. I think it's harder when it's just a total free-for-all, but I don't think that that's a reason to kill the idea of a free market. I do think that what Frankie's saying is true. I don't think that we should allow copying. And I do think, I mean, your question, I think originally was why would it affect the value? And that's just kind of my stance on why I think it would affect the value. I don't think there's no way to work around it. I don't think that a solution can't be proposed.
Yeah, that's fair.
Dennis, question, have you done the coding for wearables yet? Like, have you coded one onto a character that moves around?
You mean smart contracts or
no? Like, have you actually
the visuals?
Kind of the visuals? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All the wearables are 3D already. Yes, they are.
Yep. So what I'm asking though is have you implemented the code in order to make them like walk with the character and what have you? I know, Boss, you've done that before, yeah?
I've been around with it. I actually, because I got the document like a long time ago, because I've been bugging the DCL team to let us wear wearables for like months. I wanted to make them back in like Q4. But they've been kind of pushing it off, obviously. But I haven't like coded it onto the onto like. I'm just
interested to see how difficult that is, as opposed to like deploying land. You know, are we talking something like this 10 times as hard? You know, and as
I don't think it's going to be that hard.
Even able to do it. You know?
I don't think it's going to be that hard. You just have to follow their specification, I believe. And if you just follow it, like in terms of a design perspective, I think it should be pretty straightforward to just put it on someone.
Has a lot to do with the armature in Blender.
Yeah. Do you guys have that document? I think they shared it a while back.
Man, KJ, do you design any wearables yet, KJ, or are you just like building for land?
I'm waiting for the magic document. Because I've been with the same thing. Like, I can make the 3D model, but I can't parent it to the character to make it move, which is the whole point of wearables. Exactly. So when they release that magic source, then we'll all be able to do that and create some cool stuff.
Yeah. What about avatar animations? Is this like part of the same debate?
Wearables? like user created emotes.
Yeah,
you know?
Or dance.
Like Will said he can make the guy break dance.
Yeah,
I want to see it.
I would pay money. I would pay mana for that.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
I'm going to. As soon as Will drops his breakdance, I'm getting Will's breakdance.
Yeah, man, for real. Yeah, because the way that these avatars work is that they have a bone structure, and then once you take that bone structure and you animate it, then you just export it, and then you have a new emote. It's pretty easy.
It would actually be really easy, I would imagine. If they released the code, it would be. I mean, it'd be as easy as animating any 3D model that's rigged.
That's right.
And so
AJ disagrees.
Something that already exists in the world. And obviously you've also got to bear in mind that whatever the wearable that you're making, the textures and the materials have to be light enough so that they load as quickly as your avatar runs and jumps and disappears or shoots or whatever. I think I think they'll put out specifications that are quite easy to follow, but I don't think it's a small feat to put those documents together or to put wearables together.
Sorry, I thought we were talking about emotes. I was saying that if we could,
the same.
Is it harder to? Because I totally get it with the wearables. I just thought that the animations were super light anyway, so I didn't realize that. Like, if you have an avatar that's rigged and you can apply an animation to it, is there any reason why those animations would be kind of burdensome on the system?
It could definitely add to the lag. It would depend on the amount of animations. You could certainly add a few without having great impact on the gameplay. But if we all had the ability to create our own emotes and all to upload them, I think that would completely override the system, at least at its current capacity. But it would be really cool.
That'd be an easy fix though, because you could just like say you could have 4, you know. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I could load different 4. So instead of wave, like I don't want wave, you know, I want breakdance, you know.
Yeah, maybe there could be a library and you can choose which emotes you want and you can download different ones.
Yeah.
It would work.
Yeah.
I want to be able to, like, let's just say, like, when I win big at the casino, I want to be able to, like, pull a bottle of champagne out of nowhere and, like, pop it off in front of everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. And, like, kind of show off that way, like, kind of combine wearable.
And that's one of the things me and
emotes.
Swiss were talking about earlier, was like 3D models that are not going to be wearable, that would be kind of something you might want, like a champagne bottle, or
part of the emoting animation process.
Or like, can I like tip my cap or something like that to someone when they walk up to me? Like stuff like that, I think would be really cool. And when we don't have voice chat, it's like a nonverbal method of communication.
Everything's nonverbal. I know, we're all just like,
I know. I know.
Yeah, I want to go crazy with the emotes. Like, I want to have like a monster just like emerge and just like flex on people. Just something ridiculous. Like, I mean, we don't have to be limited to our bone structure. We can have something else like just appear behind us, or appear in front of us.
That's
anything.
Yeah,
Halo,
do you guys?
Halo, devil, and the
exactly
angel and the
Do
devil.
you remember when they first announced avatars, and there was a bunch of people that were upset because they wanted to be like anything they could in the world, like they wanted to walk around as like monsters and stuff, and they were upset that it was just
that's the
people.
Second Life.
Yeah.
Second Life.
I think that's like
culture right there,
that was a huge debate.
Yeah.
That was a huge
I went to Second
debate.
Life the other day. Dude was like a giant Hulk. There was like a demigod. I was a vampire for a little while. Like, I don't know. Catherine, have you been to Second Life? Have you?
I haven't, but now I want to go.
You have to take the field trip. It's worth it.
Okay.
You'll stand around for 25 minutes. You'll go crazy in there, because it's basically like you got Blender right in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, KJ, what's your background? Have you done everyone's?
Keep asking, Maddie. I want to hear that too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was asking KJ, and I'll probably ask Dennis as well. What's your background in terms of the online virtual worlds? Have you done them before, or is this like your first experience?
This is actually my first online virtual world, for sure. It's been a completely new experience for me in terms of online gaming and the whole decentralized system. Cool. I'd heard nothing about it, and I went out for a coffee one day and met Chunpunk, who was kind of just raving to everyone about how amazing Decentraland was and the kind of foundations that it was based on. And I was listening and thinking, this is really cool. And he was saying, oh, we need 3D modelers. At which point I was like, hey, we need to talk.
You physically ran into Chunpunk. That was just
the beginning of the rabbit hole for me. And then people started talking about Second Life and all these other metaverses that exist. And I just feel like I found the niche that I'm really interested in. I think it's fantastic.
That's awesome.
I think we should all do kind of meetups and exploration things for Second Life and other online virtual worlds, so we can all explore it together and give our thoughts on how they work. They're kind of fun when you start to explore, and they're insightful as well.
It's so funny, yeah. Like the three of us, who was it? Me, Maddie, Iron Man. Will, were you with us?
No, I wasn't there.
We did a little field trip. That shit was hilarious.
And I think we were stuck for 20 minutes because we just couldn't change our shirt, and we all looked exactly the same. We didn't know how to change it.
Our last roundtable was in Second Life, so we have that recording just released today. Right? So if you want to watch it,
I forgot about that.
So Dennis, you want to talk about your background? How'd you get into Decentraland?
I'm doing this so backwards right now.
Yeah, I'm here since ICO.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you involved?
Sorry?
Are you involved in anything else right now, or just Decentraland in terms of like metaverse projects and NFT projects?
Yeah, it's my first metaverse project, and my business is mostly offline. So I was hoping just to observe how the Decentraland evolves, but at some point I understood that only observing won't help. So we have to do something.
Exactly.
Dennis, you had one of the first like successful, free, and fun meetups when we recreated that music video.
Yeah.
What was the name of that music video again? It's slipping my mind right now. But I had the song stuck in my head for like 2 weeks. Yeah, it was so catchy.
It was Russian band Little Big.
Little Big, that's right.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. We had like 30 people, and that was probably, all the way back in March? That was like maybe a week or two after the launch. But I don't know. It's all kind of blending together right now for me.
Yeah, I think it was end of March.
End of March? Okay.
End of March, yeah. Yeah, it was a quick decision. My technical partner in Dubcraft, Sanya GK, he did that scene. I don't know how many hours he spent, but the Russian community caught it very quickly, and wow, we want to do it.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That was fun.
It was.
Really.
It was. Yeah. The video editing with it too was pretty cool. It was fun to see it all on YouTube, like the first joint thing in Decentraland, all of us together recreating something from the real world. It was pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah. That actually
yeah.
No, I was just going to say that actually motivated me and I think others to have more events on the aspect of fun. Because when I saw that, I was like, oh, we need more kind of just hanging out, fun, doing silly things. Sort of contest, and that's why we had the fashion contest, because it was just you just jump in the world and you look at each other and you laugh at what people are wearing, and hopefully, I think we need more of those sort of things, that we just jump in and there's no real goal.
The meme tower came from that same vein.
The meme tower.
Me and Maddie just joking, and the next thing you know, we're making a meme tower.
And this scene with Little Big, it had a continuation. My daughter is she's studying show business, and she used that scene in the management course for show business, and I think she got the highest grade for that project.
Yeah, that's good.
That's cool.
Yeah. So the Dubcraft is my first idea in the online and metaverse business, and of course my partner Sanya, he was doing all the technical stuff, and then we got stuck because his knowledge wasn't enough to continue. So now we have a third guy in our team, and I hope that things will move further with him. This is the guy. Maybe you saw a shop inside the world, like mannequins standing with their hands.
Oh yeah.
VR
landlord.
Yeah.
Yes, VR landlord. So we are. He is in our team now.
Nice.
Awesome.
Because he's figured out a way to integrate payments straight from Decentraland, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That code was really. I approached him about that code early on, and he was keeping it nice and tight. But that code is amazing. I actually think that code is coming to the builder in the near future. So that's going to be really cool.
So what else was the other experience I had? I tried to find someone to pay, well, not a big amount of money, but just to pay to finish our scene. And it was quite difficult because people don't want to learn something new for a short project. And so we really needed someone interested and motivated and working not for money now, but maybe for money somewhere in the future.
Okay. Yeah, it's important. Like one of the things that we always talk about is the whole money aspect that needs to be sustainable. So I totally understand the difficulty in that, Dennis. So I feel that pain, and one of the things that we always talk about is once we make this sustainable, like you're gonna see Decentraland become something that we can't even imagine. And the same thing that Iman has talked about, like for I guess ages now, is Decentraland is at a point where Ethereum, when they first started, nobody really understood like its use case. But once you get developers involved, like they start making things that you couldn't have thought of, like DeFi, and ICOs and all this stuff. And that's why we're here. That's why we're in Decentraland, because we feel like this could be the next thing, at least for gamers right now who spent, a decade playing World of Warcraft all for nothing, right? The next generation that plays, a decade worth of Decentraland, they might be worth, over $100,000 USD, right, in 10 years.
Red Nitrous talks about that a lot, because he's I don't know if everybody here knows who
18,
that is.
Right?
18-year-old kid, never spent a dime in Decentraland, but he has mythics, he has land, and he talked about that the other day. I think we were just bullshitting in the chat, and he's like, I could go play any of these other games, or I can be in Decentraland probably doing something a little more productive, you know.
Who's
Whether
this?
it's
Sorry?
actually, you know,
Red Nitrous.
Red Nitrous.
Red Nitrous.
All right.
Yeah, he that aligns with my like overall grand vision of Decentraland. Meaning, whenever me, you, and Maddie went to Second Life, the biggest thing I noticed is how expensive everything was over there, and I didn't want to load up my wallet with Linden dollars. I wanted to look for opportunities to earn those Linden dollars so I can kind of like create my own virtual existence. You know what I mean?
And they have that, right? They have jobs, I believe.
That's pretty much what I'm driving at.
Yeah,
I think that's like
in-world jobs that you can actually stand there and be like the guy on the counter. I was on the bar. I don't think I was getting paid though. I think I was just doing that.
Yeah, but I think that's an essential like element of our economy that developers aren't thinking of yet or addressing. Meaning like the casual experience for a starter user, where you could just literally jump into the world and start from zero, exactly like Red Nitrous. And there's plenty of opportunity available to where you could start earning cryptocurrency and spending that cryptocurrency that you've acquired through your experiences on whatever the fuck, whether it's you want to, swag out on wearables, you want to become the next real estate tycoon, whatever the fuck,
Yeah.
But I think
I like that. I like that whole general idea of, because it really, as somebody who's been dumping money on games for 25 years or whatever, it's like you do it like kind of like mindlessly. You're just like, yep, spent the money on the game. Oh, I need some more things from the game. Spend some money on that.
That was
and then
the only
you do
option.
it again in a year. They release the same game a year later. You're like, same exact money back, and you never see a return on it. Not that you're like looking for a return, but you're like, you're given the opportunity now to own the thing. You're like, yeah, I'll do that. It's really easy a concept for a gamer to pick up.
I agree. But I think to like wrap it into kind of what we were discussing at the start of the call is, I think the key to this, creating this type of user experience where any developer of any game can reward their earliest core users and enable them to make profit, is directly just wearables. Because right now, I mean, like for us at least, like we've been giving away a bunch of mana, a bunch of NFTs that we had to buy. I mean, I got some from Toonpunk. And some other people that donated, but we had to acquire all that monetary value and we're giving it away. But if every team that's making any game or any like event, location can just mint wearables, and that directly enables users to just be able to profit by just participating.
100% agree.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to discuss is the idea of digi-physical variables. So that's where
I love that. Yeah. That's something I've been all over since day one.
Yeah, that's where the scarcity gets really.
And then you can do really bigger things. Like I had made the example, like let's say we wanted to do a release for the Air Dior's, right? And you put a tag on the Air Dior's that was that would link it to the NFT itself. So like there'd be an NFT that represented that tag. So it tells you, okay, that Air Dior is this Air Dior, it's whatever. It could even say the size and everything, but it, gives it a number. Okay, that's the number one. That's the number, one of 1,000 up to whatever, 1,000. And then you'd have to come in game in order to like buy those things. So like, when they do these releases for these shoes or whatever that are rare, they'll have a store in Japan, a store in New York, a store in LA, a store in England somewhere. I mean, and it's like one store all over the world. They all get like 250 of them. You know what I mean? And then people pile up at the door and they wait for these things. So if you could do that in Decentraland and people were actually getting that item, the rare item that they were looking for, and then there's a way to verify it on the blockchain, I think that people eventually would really grasp on that concept. And I think that could be a big concept within Decentraland.
Yeah, that's one idea. But the other idea, I talked to several friends, designers, and one of them is quite famous, one girl with 70,000 followers on Instagram. And they are all interested in selling in new ways of selling their things. So you were saying about the digital copy of the Gucci or whatever. What I'm saying is the physical copy of the digital one.
I guess I'm saying both ways. So it'd be like the physical thing would have, like, have you ever seen how VeChain goes about doing their supply chain?
Which one?
VeChain.
Mm-hmm.
So VeChain is a Chinese supply chain company, yeah. And what you would do is they do it with wine. So because like wine counterfeiting was huge in China for I guess it is huge. So they put these labels on these wine bottles, and they're something you can scan with your phone, and then you can verify its whole history back to the grape on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
Something similar you could just do with an NFT if you were to have like again some sort of code that was like scannable, and then that once you scan that, it brought you to the NFT that was verifying what that physical item was.
Mm-hmm. Did you see MetaFactory present their project, Dennis, in our business conference?
I didn't see it in the conference, but I saw the Medium article earlier about MetaFactory.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So is MetaFactory something that what you're referring to?
Well, they have, as I understood, they have a bigger idea, like creating fashion brands.
Basically the concept is when you buy the merchandise in the real world, you'll get an NFT version of that you can take to crypto voxels, Decentraland, etc. as a wearable that looks exactly like that merchandise, and it's all scarcity based. I'm not sure if the real world merch is scarce along with the digital, but there's that sort of connection they're trying to make.
I think is it also like a way to crowdsource funding for like actual real world clothing projects? You know what I mean? Where that's kind of what I understood from the presentation. Where is there like split ownership in that brand for people who purchase those that clothing?
I thought, you know what? Now that you say that, because when I read the thing on the website, I had something of that flavor on there. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, it's almost like every time you purchase these wearables, it's almost like you're purchasing like an ICO token for this clothing brand.
Yeah, yep.
And then,
yeah, they had some sort of thing about like share delegation or something. I didn't understand that part of that auction process. I know that so Drew, he's all about the DAO and getting community people to vote for building the project. So I think he's got an element of that in the MetaFactory somewhere.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. So let's try to figure out.
I love this jacket. This jacket is sick. It's
I love it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
the way that he built it.
I would buy that.
This would be the inside. Yeah, believe me, I would too. But
would you buy it to represent it in the real world or the digital world? That's the question.
I like the real world version.
I would wear that. Yeah.
I wear my Block Runner hoodie out in the real world.
Hell yeah.
I get some looks.
But I'm sending you some money. I'm getting one of those.
I got five hoodies, 5 t-shirts that I could send out to some people if you guys want them.
Yeah, I'll send you something.
Yeah.
So it says shared ownership of MF brand, capped at minimum amount for sudden death at auction. See about the bombers reversal. So it kind of just says, but the shared ownership, I'm not 100% what that means of the MF brand. I think that's what you're talking about, man.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, they're kind of like raising crowdfunding the branding of this clothing line, and if it turns out to be a big success, does that mean you share the revenue of that?
I think so. I mean, I'd imagine, right? A shared ownership. I mean, if I'm owner, I don't get revenue. I'll be going, then I'll be going crazy.
Hey, what do you think, Clark? That sounds like violating some SEC rules, maybe.
Why do you have to bring that into it? Goddamn narc, dude.
That's a Clark topic.
Yeah,
right?
We got a lawyer here.
Jump in, Clark.
Yeah.
I mean,
Clark has left the chat.
The SEC can shut this whole thing down whenever they want to. That's the reality of the crypto space, man. It's the SEC is playing nice right now. I think that there's other regulatory bodies kind of, doing what they can. I actually, about 2 years ago, handled an SEC subpoena for an ICO that was it was sticky, and the coin, the creators were seriously concerned, and the questions they were asking were very difficult for them to answer. And this particular coin did had a major law firm do their ICO, and there were still a ton of issues with how it was done. So the reality of whether these are securities, getting into that debate,
it's going to be interesting to see how that regulatory aspect plays across the space as a whole. I think one of the cool things about Decentraland, though, kind of going back to that, this is kind of, I would imagine this is also not gonna be an issue. Maybe, SEC could look at this and be like, oh, it's just a front. No one actually wants the clothes, but I don't think for $500, that's going to be, you could imagine paying $500 for a jacket like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that you would have that issue necessarily. I always, one thing I did like about Decentraland and Mana is that it of all the cryptocurrencies, to me, it is one of the ones that looks the least amount like a security. Yeah, I mean, and I'm obviously not giving any kind of legal advice, but the fact that it has such a strong use case in world, and it's so far disjointed from I mean, it's a cryptocurrency, right? Just like any other, people are buying it because they want to see it appreciate, when the platform takes off. But I think, unlike many other cryptocurrencies, the fact that it's the base currency for the world may put it in a very different category, which I think is an interesting thing to explore should everything go south. But if that happens, guys, we're going to be having a very different conversation. The whole crypto space will be in a very different place if the regulators start to crack down. So this will be small fish.
Say the regulators crack down on, say, the Mana token. Well, then can't Decentraland make the switch to some other sort of currency movement? At the end of the day, the NFTs are there, the platform is there, and we can keep building our stuff.
I think they can.
Yeah.
I think they can, and I think the platform will survive past any kind of thing like that. I also think that the SEC will have much bigger fish to fry based on the securities aspect of it. Now, that's where I get kind of concerned about other things that the platform could do to piss off regulators. And so I've always been kind of a preacher for, look, we're all on such gray area anyways, that let's not massively violate the law. Let's control pornography, for example, on the platform, because if you don't, you're going to get the attention of certain regulators. I think gambling is another huge one that it's putting a bullseye on the platform. And I think there's a huge potential for return and a huge boost, but it has to be 100% done correctly. If it's done wrong, every regulator will shut it down in a minute, and they can, because they control the platform. The Explorer would shut down. It would be ugly if the regulators, especially the United States, because they like to overstep, it would be ugly if we pissed off the wrong.
But what if they can't shut it down, Clark?
Well, I think that it's tough, right? Because it could get there. I think there's probably a technological way to do it. I think that being able to shut it down and being able to stop it and insert your authority into it, for example, going after the team and going after the founders, and going after the developers and going after the people who are hosting content servers and issuing some sort of takedown. I think that's all possible. I think there's there's a lot of smart, really crazy coding that's happening on the back end. So maybe there's a way to keep it from being shut down from a motivated government agency. But I would be very surprised if we got there, and I would strongly caution against it if I was advised.
I think that's why we're here. I think Decentraland is going to be closer to Tor. It's going to be closer to those BitTorrent, all that stuff, where anything pretty much goes and it really can't be shut down. And the only way to shut down is to go after all the people running the servers for Decentraland. And it's now a single location. It's not like that. Well, it is like that today, right, boss?
Yeah, we're one of, obviously I understand your concerns. And, we really took that into consideration when we were set up all of our operations, like our servers, our legal entity, where our founders are based, and really looked at all like the licensing issues. And we actually got green lights from some pretty large firms for our legal structure, which was really good to see, because we're raising a seed round right now. And hopefully we'll be able to release information like on that. But we did get the green light from US based funds that are pretty well known in crypto. So that was good to see, because everything that we do on the gambling side of things is completely legal from our standpoint, in terms of blocking US users and blocking. We have an entire list of like whitelisted and blacklisted jurisdictions that we strictly enforce through an IP grab when the user tries to deposit any type of monetary value to like network. So we block pretty much. I mean, obviously people can use VPNs, but the same can be said about any gambling platform online. But we do the best practices to enforce the law. And so yeah, I think, from that standpoint, we aren't breaking any laws in the US. And then in terms of actually serving the content, I don't know where all the different nodes are, but our node is based in our in our jurisdiction, which is Costa Rica, and it runs on our server there physically. So there's lots of servers that run there that support all types of gambling sites. Some that completely blatantly break the law and then just serve American customers. Mm-hmm. But right. I think and so yeah, it's an issue, and I think I think if they really wanted to go after us, they could try. But I think it would be really hard, just because what Will said, it's decentralized, and I think it's part of the reason why a lot of people are involved with Decentraland, and it provides that safety from regulation.
Right. And
so yeah, I think it's an integral part of the community is being not censorable in some ways. But I do agree with you. I personally don't want to be walking around and see porn everywhere. So.
Agreed.
Well, I think the other side of that is you just talked about all the things that you did to do it right. And I think that I'm not suggesting we don't do it. I'm just saying we need to do it right. And the types of stuff that you did, especially with restricting users and blocking IP addresses and kind of structuring it the same way that other gambling platforms would to kind of stay within the regulatory bounds, I think is exactly what we have to do. And I'm definitely not suggesting that we don't do it. And frankly, I hope that every single casino that we see pop up in Decentraland does exactly what you're doing. And I guess my worry is that that's not what's going to happen. And we're going to see coders, just come in and start just, you'll have your whatever slot machines or whatever, because that doesn't seem like it's going to be as hard to code as it would be to clear in a regulatory way and do what you did, set up an entity in Costa Rica and make sure that it's illegal. Like, that's a lot of work. Dropping a slot machine that works is not, so I'm worried that the lazy ones will be what creates the issue. And there's also issues. I'm looking at Frankie's screen right now with video streaming. You got to be careful because you don't want to piss off the wrong people. And so, yeah, I'm not one for censoring, but I do think there has to be some degree of ability to, really go after and quickly shut down the bigger abuses just for reputational purposes. We don't want.
How do you think the best way of doing that would be? How do you think the best way to enforcing that? Yeah.
Well,
I agree with you. I obviously agree, but there's a balance, obviously, with the allowing freedom and liberties, and also making the world a livable place.
Yeah.
To hang out.
Well, I think there has to be a kill switch somewhere.
Crowdsource censoring. That's my opinion.
What's that?
Crowdsource censoring.
Well, I think you could.
But that's delayed though.
It is delayed.
I think you crowdsource the process. You say, okay, as a DAO, we're going to vote on a committee who is responsible for quickly responding to DMCA takedown notices, for example, which are just, what a copyright holder submits to a platform when someone is violating their copyright. so that the platform can maintain some degree, in the United States at least, some degree of lack of liability and immunity from liability for things that are posted by users on their website, like YouTube, for example. There's definitely debates on that from a censorship perspective and how these companies employ that censorship. But I think that you need to have those controls to a certain extent to really prevent the real abuses. You know, if we see something, and people were talking about it on the forums, and I thought it's a bit of an extreme example, but people were talking about pornography, and there should be a way to immediately take down pornography if it's video streaming on a platform. And I don't think that's a reason to like greenlight censorship full scale, but I do think that, you know, if I, as a lawyer, and I do this with YouTube and other, you know, companies and platforms, if I, as a lawyer, go through the process of submitting a takedown notice for a copyright holder, and it's clear that the landowner is violating that copyright, those are laws you have to deal with. And if it's a jurisdictional thing, you have to demonstrate that. And at the end of the day, there should be a way of controlling that. You know, the good part is there's ways to control without being overly controlling. And I think that you have to find a balance and stay within the laws, but also kind of promote the idea of, you know, not censoring things and free expression. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, there has to be some technical way to do some sort of censoring, because somebody is streaming pornography. They need to be taken down as swiftly and quickly and efficiently as possible, because it messes with everybody's businesses. It creates a bad look on Decentraland, and it has the whole Silk Road situation with Bitcoin, right? Back in the day, where Bitcoin was only for drugs and prostitution. And we can't have that here, because we have 10 years of blockchain experience to not be like that, right? And so we should be able to find a technical way to deal with something like this, you know, if it ever comes to, you know, a reality.
The good thing is that to be a part of this world, you have to pay a pretty large amount of money. So not anyone can get involved and start doing stuff like that. People that are involved in this. Yeah, people that are involved in this, you know, like,
but these
hopefully it's not going to be as
dude.
common and as often as like open worlds, where you can just log in, make an account, and pops up something up on the world.
Yeah, but these people, these guys who are running these nefarious businesses, they have money. So, you know, $600 land.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're not saying it's out of their reach, you know, but, you know, just a random, you know.
Yeah, a troll.
Hopefully you don't build that culture to start. You know, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. A $600, you know, entry fee will stop trolls, but
it wouldn't stop a
which
business.
Is like 80% of the issue.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Because it'd be like creating that culture. Then the person with the money looking at like, oh, I can go in there and do my thing in there. But if there's no culture for that, hopefully that person wouldn't think that that's something viable for them financially. You know?
Yeah.
Well, if I could push back on that a little bit, and I think that the team will take care of this. At some point, the developers will take care of this. But I think as the code stands right now, I could go and, Maddie, you have, you know, probably like a 50-something parcel estate somewhere, right? Like big ones, right? That you've invested a ton of money on. I could buy a single parcel within earshot range of that, you know, very easily code a very annoying sound and then play it on full volume, and that sound will resonate through your entire estate.
Mm-hmm.
Would you pay more than $600 to shut that sound off if you are, you know, managing this huge estate? Probably, right? If there's no other way to take it down, if you can't go to someone and say, look, this is a clear abuse of the terms of use, this is clearly, or if there's no way to shut it down with coding. You know,
I mean, I think that's something we need to talk about as a community anyway, the sound pollution, you know, because we started as MP3 sound, and the MP3 sound was location based. Mm-hmm. So when I was playing my music in my building, it would play all the way to past the train and everything. Like, so I'm on 3, 4, 5 different people's parcels playing my music.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Not really though. Right. So, you know, then when streaming started, then it was like, okay, well, it's just based on the parcel. That seems like way better. Now, obviously, you need sound is like directed for like things within like, like clicking the button and you hear the click sound or whatever. Those things you would need for like location sound. But the location sound shouldn't have to go to 10 parcels. Like, what needs to be that loud?
Yeah.
No, I agree. Which is why I think they'll figure out a way around it. I think that's just like a bad example. But the same could be said, for example, with a sign, right? I could post a giant, ugly, obscene. Frankly, I could post something about you, right? If I don't like you personally, I could, and you own all this land. I buy up one little land next to you and post. And we've seen this. This isn't like some new concept. Second Life had a huge issue.
That's when you find out with someone real, Frank. Post some about me for real. I'll start to travel.
I'm worried about that. I think as I get bigger and bigger in land, I think it becomes an issue that you worry about someone just putting something next to you and you not being able to have any say over what it is, especially if it's targeted. And people get creative about
like a baby version of that with Crunch.
That's just part of business, man. It's just part of business. Like people do that in the real world.
Yeah, didn't Johnny Depp put on like a inflatable gorilla on top of his roof that was flipping off his neighbor? Because the neighbor didn't want to sell his property to Johnny Depp. So Johnny Depp just put a bunch of ugly stuff up around his house to piss him off.
Yeah, it's a tactic, man.
Like I think it's a really fine line when we talk about I mean, obviously there's some things we need to take care of, like pornography and stuff. But when we talk about editing what people can and can't put on their parcels, what's to stop me from filing some sort of complaint if your parcel is successful and it's next to mine? How do we stop that? If it's just a DAO vote, like you could totally hijack that and take advantage of it. I think there's got to be something that we come to meet in the middle on somewhere.
I think there should be some members that have been like approved to represent the community and like whitelisted to maybe there's like 20 of us members or 50 members say that we know that are core Decentraland community members, and their weight also counts to the reporting process.
Similar to the nodes, like to the node setup.
Like a Senate, essentially.
DCS, Senate, whatever they have.
Yeah, I just wish there was some
that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, sorry, Clark. I was just going to say, I wish there was just a technical way of doing so, but I don't think there is. I think you're right. There has to be some committee that has the ban hammer already, like, locked and loaded, just in case something pops up,
Oh, man, that sounds like the police. I don't want to be on that team. Okay, hold on. I'm off topic. I know this is just a kind of a jokey thing, but who built that jail? Does anybody know who built this giant jail? I'm going to talk about this jail until this jail comes down. We don't need a jail.
Where?
The one in
Decentraland. I hate it already. It's right across from Swiss's club. They need to take it down.
That's right across from my estate too. I hate it. They will take it down.
Ooh.
It's that's Dragon City. When they do their design, they're going to take all that down.
All right, good for them. Nice. That city spot thing's supposed to be pretty cool. I looked at the design and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I mean, it's super a builder project. It's not like it's nice, but I'm just saying, like, it's a jail, and I don't like it.
They also have a really annoying, loud alarm that you can hear from my estate every time it goes off.
Really?
Actually,
no, I know about that because I went to that. Like, I went there and messed around with it. I'm like, why is this? Like, why? There was just another project that has like a jail from like the developers, and I think that's a ridiculous thing. We'll talk about that.
Do we have any other specific topics anyone wanted to bring up? I think we had a few that we listed down, Will, wasn't it? Let me check our chat.
Well, I think we talked about it. We talked about liability. I think ultimately right now Decentraland isn't completely decentralized yet because there's some server aspects that only the team controls right now. But the idea is this is going to become more like BitTorrent and Tor networks and all that stuff where there's not one thing that you can shut down to really stop Decentraland, which, again, is why we're here. And so I'd be interested to see, like, once, if somebody is running some sort of nefarious business, like, the only way is to stop the individual, like find the IP address, locate them, go to their internet service provider, see who they are, and literally go and physically shut them down. And that would be technically the only way the authorities can take down content. And so,
what happens if Decentraland.org goes down? Well, I'm asking because I'm not sure how that would work. What would be the technical results?
So that's the point. The website would be down, but the Decentraland world would stay up.
How would you access it? As I'm asking.
Well, it's just with the links, right? So Boss has his server. He's still running Decentraland. There's probably like 40 other people running their servers. You would just.
So which URL would I have to go to access Decentraland?
Well, the current one right now.
Or we build a client, a completely third-party client that has nothing to do with any of that, and then we can just probably access it that way.
Wait, but the domain name isn't central, like the play.decentraland.org.
So that's a good point. That's a good point, Clark. So that domain name is right now routing to the servers. And so if you take down that domain name, you're completely taking down Decentraland because there's no way to be routed to the correct server, right? So we have several servers. We're on one right now, Fenrir Amber, right? Mm-hmm. So once we're able to decentralize this aspect, then it would be very difficult. It's possible to shut down Decentraland, but very difficult.
So you're saying the access point is eventually going to be 40 different links? Is that an issue from a implementation? I mean, because the reality here is, my understanding is we're going to a desktop client. And if we go to a desktop client, that is going to be, I mean, there's always going to be some aspect of centralization there. So how do you, I don't know. I like the thought, right, of getting it completely detached. But I wonder, if that is best, one, for growth of the platform, because it seems like it would make it much, much more difficult to adopt, because people are used to just going to a website and having the website do the work for them. But
no. So think about this. So the GitHub repository, that holds all the updates, and that holds all the submit requests for updating the SDK, all kinds of stuff, right? And that is what servers are running, right, through that GitHub. So that is the central point. But just shutting down GitHub won't shut down the actual game. Now, once everything is decentralized, of course. Right now, of course, if you shut down .org, it's over. But that's temporarily, yeah, because it could still be stood up because everything's on GitHub, right? It's really up to the community. It's our responsibility to keep this thing going. Once we lose interest and the majority of the population loses interest, and Decentraland is no longer there. But that's sort of the point of why we're here, is that we're creating that interest. We're making reasons to make Decentraland a place people go to. And so once things are decentralized, it is going to be difficult to completely shut it down. Like there would be no way where Decentraland just doesn't pop up on your computer anymore.
Do other domains, so like .eth or .crypto, do they work differently? Are they?
No, those domains.
Set it up on .eth or something?
It's like a business, right? Those domains. If the Ethereum organization shuts down, that domain shuts down, but that doesn't mean Ethereum shuts down, right? They have separate communities. They have a community supporting the Ethereum GitHub, in other words. And
no, that's what I mean. So if we were to build this URL for Decentraland on like a decentraland.eth or a .crypto domain,
you could absolutely. You just maintain it, and you're a community member, and you're maintaining the actual website somewhere else. Then absolutely, once .org.
So Open NFT brought that up in the chat.
Yeah. And I actually heard an interview with that guy today, the guy from Unstoppable Domains,
me too.
and he's talking about, cool. And he said something of that, like they're going to be almost like all the way decentralized as a company soon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be one way to do it. Use the Unstoppable Domains to keep the actual website up, but I don't see that as being as important as continuing to run the servers, right? Because you can still, but you still need a pretty interface in order to onboard people. That's the importance of the Decentraland.org.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is there's always going to be the regulatory kill switch, right? Like, as we can talk about it as much as we want, as it'll be a decentralized world. But, I think that there will be a number of people who continue to use it if the regulators still shut it down, and they'll jump through hoops and they'll do whatever it takes to get back on. But I don't think that you'll have the type of mass adoption that we're really hoping for the platform if it became this kind of taboo, like this is no longer supported by the regulators, and that, they've taken actions to shut this down, and they make it much more difficult, for example, to get licenses and, whatever you need to do because it's affiliated with the platform. I think it's much easier to think creatively about how do we avoid that situation where, it gets shut down because I think there's other reasons too, right? You have the foundation and you have 220 or so million mana tied up in the foundation, and that mana is all owned by a central organization, right? So I don't think that, at least for 10 years, there is deep pockets that could be gone after, and significant assets that could be taken by a regulator if the regulator had a reason to do so. I think
absolutely.
the important part is don't give it to them.
100% agree. The point of decentralization is not to support nefarious activities and not to be able to shut them down. Because once Decentraland is pitted as, some sort of like underground drug ring, then it's a bad deal for all businesses. Boss is not going to be able to get his funding round. Nobody's going to be able to do anything because it's like Pirate Bay. You go to Pirate Bay and you're liable to download, viruses, right? So then people won't go to Pirate Bay, right? So it's that's you don't want to have regulation down your neck because you have activity that's not, legal, right? So the point of decentralization is not to support that type of activity. The point is to have digital ownership that is uncensorable. And I think that's the real reason why we're here.
I think that's the reason why a subset of the community is here. I think that there are very differing views on how this. I can tell you it's not why I'm here. I think that what attracted me to this is the blockchain ownership of land. I thought that was an amazing idea for a metaverse and a digital space, and I think that solves a huge issue that other platforms have had, and the idea of blockchain for NFTs. And I think there's a lot of good ideas in Decentraland that could be implemented with some degree of mainstream appeal. And I don't know if the mainstream technically cares that much about things being so decentralized that no form of sense. So I understand the view because I've had this debate a lot, and I tend to agree with it. I mean, that is kind of the foundational principle that started, I think, the platform. But I think, when you really start unpacking some of the different aspects of the platform, you start to see kind of centralization all over. And it's not just a matter of the servers. There's a lot of aspects of this system that are set up to look decentralized, but really when you look at the operation, they're at least at this stage, they're not, and they're not going to be, I guess, in the near future. And I think that, while there is, I think, this ideological goal that we should move to of, making things as decentralized as possible, I think there are going to be points where the cost outweighs the reward. And there will be a stopping point that I think is short of complete decentralization, where, even the most hardcore people will accept, okay, like there are certain things, like even you were saying, like the ability to control pornography, for example, must be a right that we have to be able to swiftly adopt to. And then I think you can just figure out what that means in the construct of decentralization, right? Because you have, you can say, well, in a decentralized world, the community would decide upon that, and that's fine. And I think that's ultimately what will happen. But I think what we've seen through history is that starts to lead to centralization. And I think then we have to ask, like, is that what we want, or is that not what we want?
Yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to centralization at all. I think that's a lot of the ways things start. And trying things out, MVP style, a minimum viable product, you have to centralize things because that's the cheapest way to go. But KJ, I want to get your opinion on, like, what are your thoughts on this whole decentralization thing? Is that one of the reasons why you stick around, or is something else a reason?
No, for me, it is a big deal. To be honest, speaking about the whole pornography thing, I think in an ideal world, no one who wanted to publish any of that kind of content should go anywhere near Decentraland, but I understand that's very naive thinking. I'm not sure how we can allow people to express themselves 100% freely, but whilst avoiding these kind of situations. It seems like a catch-22. And to be honest, my personal opinion is these people just shouldn't exist in the first place, and they should find a Decentraland. They probably will.
And I think the only thing I'll say about porn is we're using the most extreme, clear example to argue, whether or not Decentraland should be able to be shut down. And I think that's the point. Someone came into the Discord and saying, hey, over here at CryptoVoxel, we're talking about events and we're talking about wearables. But I come over here and there's nothing but porn, discussions. I was like, okay, but yeah, it's just it's one of those extreme hypotheticals to prove a point. And I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of, that sort of nefarious, stuff within Decentraland. But it is good. It's a good thought experiment to understand, like, what are the implications in terms of the Decentraland team, the foundation, and what authorities could do about actual illegal activities. So I think it to me, it's a very interesting conversation, but maybe once we have a real case where there's like a landowner who's doing this stuff, maybe that's when, like, the shit hits the fan in terms of, like, what is actually going to happen. So
and I think we'll move very fast in implementing something as well. So
yeah, I agree.
Whatever it will be, I'm sure the Decentraland team is just going to start to get us moving to report these real quick. But I wanted to move to a different topic of events, because we got like 15-20 minutes left. I actually wanted to bring this up at the start, but we've been trying to organize a lot more events, a lot more based on fun or anything that you guys think is going to involve community momentum. And one thing we had in mind was, yes, wearables, we can't make wearables at the moment in Decentraland and have them animated, but that doesn't stop us from using Blender and creating some sort of wearables and maybe putting them on mannequins or something in Decentraland as part of a competition. So we were thinking, and we had a brief discussion, is why don't we have like a Blender comp for making wearables? So people can make wearables, we can put them into Decentraland, and maybe someone can animate them, or we can put them on a mannequin and judges can go in and see what people have built and try and get that kind of creativity flow momentum happening. So people aren't just on the sidelines waiting for Decentraland to do something. What did you think about that, KJ and Dennis? And those that haven't heard this idea before, think Baus and Clark as well.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah,
we will come.
Sorry.
It will come. Yeah, I think that could be a great way to show the general larger, like, population of the community. Like, there's a lot of people trying to do this, and this is what it could look like. It's like an example, like, hey, this is what my t-shirts would look like. This is what this person's pants would look like. I don't even make t-shirts. I make this, whatever it is,
Actually, this is one of the ideas we want to be in the world as DevCraft, to be able, so the new designers can show their things first in the world, and then we can buy it.
Yeah, I guess it's like kind of like right now you can actually build up on your portfolio, because if there's really good Blender people that are waiting for wearables, well, why not just build stuff now and get popular and be like, oh, here's Joe, who's really good at making wearables.
Yeah.
We know these people exist before the wearables contract, the DAO voting is up. So we know who to vote in and who not to. KJ, is that sort of a competition doable? Like, is Blender easy to learn if you don't know, or is it only restricted to?
I think it's one of those cases of if you sit down with it and you've got the interest and the perseverance to do it, you'll be fine. It's the same as coding. You know, it's a complete mindfuck to begin with, but as soon as you've sat down with it for a while, it's like, okay, like I kind of know what I'm doing. And to be honest, I think in the past, all the competitions that we've had that have had community involvement have only really brought good things, because people start getting more involved in Decentraland, in the applications, they start talking to each other, and we start to create this community, which is what Decentraland is supposedly all about. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there a way to have like some sort of a template that we can use as a base template, like to say a shirt, and then they can import that into Blender, and people like me that's never used Blender before just kind of stretch it in ways that we want to?
Yeah, we could definitely create, for example, a base t-shirt, shirt, trousers, and then maybe the individual user could texture them or paint them or color them in the way that they wanted, or cut pieces out. Or
the only
if you just mess with textures, you could get a lot of different designs, even with the same structure, the shirt and some pants, but different textures will make it look completely different.
Yeah.
The only issue with this is that importing it into Decentraland, it'll look like a different product, right? In terms of what you build in Blender. So kind of trying to find or frame it in a way that people new to this concept understand and not wasting time doing too much stuff on Blender.
We can try to put it on our scene, and people can try it before the contest. They just come on our scene, and I'm not sure if we can code it, but it seems like that they can come on scene and check how these things look inside.
Yeah, totally. But I'm saying that, you know, in actually using Blender, and you create, say, a shirt, when you import that shirt into Decentraland, isn't it going to look a little bit different because some parameters
aren't still be different?
Not like completely different, unless you like using things that aren't available to Decentraland with Blender.
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff, like Catherine talked to me about this before, where like there's a bunch of stuff that you just can't do, you know, that doesn't translate from Blender to the game. But I mean, it would look generally like what you made in Blender, unless you were making it with mirrors and like some wild shit.
Yeah, if you look at our wearables, they look more or less the same as they are.
So it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah.
Like when I made the necklace, it went into the game looking like the necklace it was in Blender. Just pretty basic, because I'm pretty basic with the Blender.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question, KJ. If you look at the screen and you look below, there's an orb floating around, right? My question is, could you create a t-shirt with an orb like this revolving around the shirt?
Whoa. Technically, yes. Technically, yes. It definitely depends on the what kind of information we had from the SDK and the documentation.
Okay.
But definitely possible.
Okay, because that would be the prototype to my Monster Flex emote in the future.
Really cool.
Yep.
Okay, good, because that's how, you know we were talking about the conference earlier, and seeing those slides, it's cool. But like a regular T-shirt, a hat, it's cool too. It's just we got to think a little bit more outside the box here.
And again, I think that's when the user created content comes out. We
for sure
be all over that. We should make all kinds of things that that are completely separate from what this stuff is, and this stuff will look like regular clothes, and our stuff might look like futuristic clothes.
Yeah.
And then maybe clothes will start taking our trend, our trends, and not necessarily have things flying around them, but maybe there's some styles that actual people take from our style in Decentraland that we're making things that are kind of crazy. And then, like, you know what? That does kind of work in real fashion.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I want to walk into a Decentraland and see things that I couldn't have come up with. And
Will's so sick of seeing tables and buildings, man. He's like, if I see another table.
Yeah, like when you see chairs, like I don't understand why there's chairs right now. Like not even sitting down, and people have like spend time. Dude, they spend time like organizing tables and chairs.
Yeah.
I was
the whole reason tables exist is that things don't fall down.
Yeah.
You see tables there, and you're like, well, we don't have cups that we need to defy gravity to keep up.
Hold up, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Tables don't need to exist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, I think it's just like a matter of us unlocking that concept in the mind. Like as we start seeing cooler and cooler, more virtual type builds, that sort of stuff will become rarer, I hope.
I even thought about like changing the radio station to have it just be inside the globe and have the globe be floating, and then you just have to get like beamed up to the globe.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Nice.
Anything that's not the same as the real world.
Yeah.
It was like Will in my ear, like Frank, change this thing. It was like a building. It's like a building to me.
Yeah, because
think about it. I think real life builds do have, or real life looking stuff does have its place in the world, because when you're trying to bring in companies to do conferences and stuff, a lot of those people aren't going to be able to wrap their heads around something that's totally different. Like I think it's important we have, like I think Crypto Valley's where we just held that business conference. I thought that build was the perfect blend of something that was futuristic and different looking, but also real enough where we can bring people in and they can easily, I mean, there's the stage. They know to go up to the stage and stand there in front of the slides, like something as simple as that, where if we make stuff too complex, there's going to be people that aren't going to buy into it. So it has its place.
I actually heard some really interesting feedback on that conference. It's a very critical feedback. And part of it was that, going to a conference, you don't really want to feel like it's the same as a real world conference. And that's the setting that we had. So people that went there, the way we also ran it, like we did 20-minute per speaker. And I think the whole thing was like an hour and a half. And I don't know, because I wasn't someone that came to listen. I came to kind of manage it. I didn't know from a listener's perspective, was that too long, or was that too much spaces of no one talking, or did that initial 20-30 minutes that we had before we started of a tech issue, was that very familiar with like real life events, right? Like that's how a conference is done in the real life. And so I took back from that and I was like, oh, maybe we should just have 4-minute speakers, have some sort of cooler, maybe a smaller conference, because that was a pretty big conference area and it kind of made everyone look very small as well. So
that's true.
And I just heard that some people came away from that feeling like it was a real world conference.
Which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just like my expectations.
That's good, no? I mean,
like it
depends. Like some people want to go to a virtual place and be like, oh wow, there's something going on over there, or someone's wearing an octopus hat, or like all this cool shit that you don't see in real life.
Yeah.
But again, you can't please everyone. Some people want to go there and have a real world experience and be like, whoa, this is so realistic.
And I think that can be actually tailor-made toward the event eventually. So in the beginning, we're just doing a conference, man. We're just trying to get everything figured out, But if we do an event with let's say we do an event which is all Metaverse people instead of all people from businesses, it makes it wild because it'll be representing what we're all kind of involved with, these Metaverses. So you're like, okay, create something crazy for that one because, that's what they kind of like, want. Or if that's what the people that were presenting wanted. But if it's just a normal business conference, like, especially on the first one that we did, I mean, we had a building.
Yeah. I agree with Frank there. I mean, the San Diego Convention Center hosts, major business conventions, and it hosts Comic-Con, right? And so you walk into those and it's the same building, but it's a totally different different thing for each one. So, and I've been to both, and it's like I think there's a place for both. I agree.
Interesting. I guess you can use the same building but tweak a few things. Maybe just change the floor to like a moon floor setting or something different, so that it look, or maybe make the surroundings like stars or a black box or something.
Yeah, it's kind of how the theater was set up, even as KJ's build there for the fashion show.
That's a really cool build, by the way, KJ. That was my first oh wow, this is a really nice place to hold something.
Yeah, I had a lot of help from my teammate who's working silently in the corner.
That was an awesome build. Awesome build.
The update was even better.
Great to see so many people there.
Yeah, that had to be a really big moment for you and your teammate. Like you put in all that time and then you finally have a use case for it.
To be honest, and also behind the scenes, we had the old version of the theater up, and I think it was during the event we uploaded the new version of the theater.
Like 20 minutes before the event. I was panicking. Carl uploaded a whole new thing.
But when we went inside and reloaded, the contents of the parcel just suddenly changed.
That's crazy.
We were really happy because we've been working on these changes for a couple of weeks, and it was great to see them, there.
So
yeah.
So when I first started using Blender, I kind of had this thought that it would be really cool, and I've played with it. I'm just not very good at Blender, to have spheres, because spheres allow you to kind of change the perspective of the game. And I think, Maddie, you've been to the club I built.
That was an amazing, I love that concept.
And so that was me, messing around with like 2 weeks of Blender knowledge. I think that concept with someone who's really a good developer and like has the coding knowledge and has the Blender knowledge could be really implemented in a way that makes conferences and different structures completely interchangeable, and you can have a very serious setting. Like I could go conceptually, I could go from being at a beach 1 second and I press a button in the scene and it just changes what's on the sphere, and all of a sudden I'm in space. And then I press a button on the scene and all of a sudden I'm somewhere else. And so what the sphere does is it encapsulates you in an entire environment that is different from the environment that you're normal.
That's really cool.
I would love to see it on like
you could do it with a dome as well. Yeah, like you could be flat on the ground. It could be a dome. Yeah.
But you'd have to update every time, right? Update the browser
every time you wanted to change the textures on it. That's not like that wild.
Not necessarily. What you could do is you could. What you could do is you could have a function where it changes the size of the sphere. Is the way I was thinking of it. And so you actually have like 20 spheres, right? And you press a button and it triggers one sphere, and that becomes the focal point. Press a different button. Now I was thinking, I could probably do that in the builder, right? But I'm sure someone with good, Blender, I would love. I mean, I was kind of guarding that idea for a while, but now I'm working on so many other things that I would love to just be a part of someone who knows how to do it, doing it, because I think it's a good idea, and I think someone can make something really cool with it.
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is you'd have multiple domes and just call for them in the SDK. So it'll be like an on-click.
Exactly.
Click it, new dome comes up, new image, everything's there.
Yep.
And as long as you can have 1 million of them there, as long as they're not on scene, because you're just for triangles, like it only matters what's being seen. So you could have 20 backed up and be like, all right, load that. And
exactly.
Well, if anyone's listening and wants to partner with me to do it, I can explain the idea better, because I've been looking for anyone who knows how to do it better than I do, because I think it's a workable idea, but I just don't know how to do it.
I love the idea. I love the concept of it, because then we can have speakers, and then when it's their turn to speak, you can change the look to suit what they're speaking about. And so it's part of like their presentation is actually the immersiveness. Like you're suddenly in the Ross Tower, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is what this guy's talking about.
But I think
that's
it's
next
not
level. I love it.
It's not more the conference; it's some kind of showference.
That's it, man. We're changing this real world concept. It's different. Like we're building a whole new universe, basically.
Yeah, it's Metacon instead of Comic-Con, right?
Right.
Metacon.
Right.
I like it.
Well, you might have just made $1 million.
All right, so we've been going for an hour and 52 minutes. I think we should wrap this up. And any closing thoughts, KJ, Boss, anybody?
I liked the Matty's idea to show the wearables, even if we can't really.
I agree. That'd be a really good event.
Yeah, I think it's time for that event. Yep.
All the existing wearables are even on the Decentraland GitHub. You guys, if you ever check that out, you can get the files. Yeah, and you can just put them into a scene. But you can't edit them because they're not Blender. But
I've imported them into Blender before and changed.
I import them into Blender. You can do whatever you want with them. Yeah.
Oh, I've never done that. Yeah, damn.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I got the asset pack. You just pop back in. So, like when I make something that I want to put on a person, I load that thing in there. Or I want to try to size something for my scene. I'll load a guy in there, and then I'll figure out what they look like in ratio, whatever. So I made the memes. Stand the guy up, cut the head out.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any builds that you're working on that you want to let the people know? Check out KJ and Clark, Dennis, and Bass.
I don't know if I can talk about the stuff I'm working on.
Uh-oh.
To kill you.
Well, that's good to know that you're working on some stuff. Is it like is it for people or is it your own stuff?
Mostly for other people. Got some interesting ideas going on with Frankie as well, which we'll kind of like keep on the down low until we're ready to like show them in real time.
That's really cool. I think that's what I'm realizing whenever I talk to a community member or someone, is that they've got their own set of things they're working on, which is good for me to see, because I'm always like, oh, well, what's happening on Twitter? You know, Twitter tells me I think Twitter tells me what everyone's working on, but I know everyone's got their own secrets and stuff.
Oh yeah, Maddie has all the secrets. You can make a lot of money, dude.
Just hassle everyone. I block too many people. Dennis, are you working on anything different to the Dapcraft or any other projects that you can talk about?
Well, not building, but more thinking of the friends I know which I can invite to the sale, and I sent you a private message. So if you're in Discord,
I just read that.
Yeah.
So talk to you about it.
I would not talk about the names now, but just the idea that inviting some really popular people into Decentraland and discussing something like we do it now.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Nice.
It's so cool. We're all like in separate parts of the world. Like we're all kind of tapping into a different market. I think the closest people, I mean, obviously, I think Will and I-Man live pretty close. But other than that, I think it's me and Frankie. And Frankie's still like 700 miles away from me. Like we're all over the place. It's pretty cool. So a lot of potential for growth there.
Totally agree. All right. So yeah, let's say our goodbyes. Everyone in Decentraland, all the citizens out there, appreciate showing up. This is Frankie's show, really. All that technology you're listening to, that's because of Frankie. So I want to thank Boss, Dennis, KJ, Maddie, Kal-El from Krypton, Frankie, I-Man, and Anorak for showing up too. So we really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week, right, guys?
Yep.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Later.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.